All right, Justin here, the After Hours Auto Sports in Golden, Colorado. This should be part 2 of our Cagekits.com S14 roll cage install. If you haven't watched part 1, I suggest you do it first. It should be in the channel, and I will try to link it down in the description. So where we're at right now, at the start of episode 2, is we've got the main hoop, the harness bar, the diagonal bars, the halo supports, and the A-pillar bars and the rear supports all installed in the car. So we're making good progress on it. If you watch part 1, you'll know what a fan of the kit I am. Sorry, I'm trying to find a light here. You know what a fan of the kit I am so far. So we are getting on to, I don't want to say the more difficult stuff, but the more labor-intensive stuff now. We did go ahead and make a change to this kit with Rob from Cagekits when ordering. The customer, Angelo, for this car wanted door bars that were not in this kit already. This kit was already made, sitting on a pallet ready to be shipped. So what we decided to do was Rob hooked it up and swapped out the door bars from another kit for the door bars that Angelo wanted. However, since this main hoop had already been made and printed, and the A-pillars and all that, the laser etches, he said, may or may not be accurate now. They seem really close, but we can't rely on them fully, so we may have to do some custom fitting of the door bars. Not a big deal. And again, our own choice. The more complicated part that we still have on our horizon is we need to do the anti-intrusion bars. Now, this is kind of the one part of this whole install that the Cagekits kit leaves up to the installer. So what they give you is they give you 2 bars that are they're both notched into the A-pillar tube, and one of them is notched into the other bar. So you can put those, I think you can put those together outside the car. That's what I'm going to try to do. And the etches on the A-pillar bars do correspond with those anti-intrusions. Now what the kit doesn't give you is an anti-intrusion base plate or a fitted end of that intrusion. So I'm not totally sure why. I'm assuming it's just for install variants. They don't want you to be left with a 1/4-inch gap to your anti-intrusion base plates once you've got everything else fit up. So not a big deal. The S14 floor is not ideal for this, but we'll make it work, and I'll be sure to cover that in the process because that's probably where most people are going to have questions, because they do leave that top bar long. You do have to fit it yourself, cut it, get it to fit the base plate that you make. Other than that, we're cruising right along. It's been way quicker than I expected, and I'm very happy with the kit. So I will show you some pictures or some footage now of where the kit is at currently, and then we'll go from there. All right, so this is kind of where we're at with the cage right now. Like I said, we've got this main hoop all assembled, the roof done. We went ahead and dropped the cage down through the floor, welded up the tops of it, got it back up, and then we were able to get these base plates welded in on both sides. The rear bars in, all the base plates handled, dash bar in. So we did have to spread, these apart just a hair to get the door bars to snap in. They're not 100% in their place, like I kind of said. They're just in there to keep the fitment correct right now. I think it's going to be better off to get the anti-intrusions handled before welding in the door bars, just for a matter of space and being able to get around inside the car. So we are going to go ahead and work on that, and then we will move forward from there. All in all, it's coming along really well. Really, really well. I'm very impressed with this kit. All right, so what I decided to do, since they give you these very convenient etch marks on the bars, and it's very clear which notch fits the etch mark on the lower bar. If you try them both, only one perfectly matches the line, the other one's quite a bit off. So it's pretty clear. So I went ahead and decided to just weld the lower anti-intrusion to the upper anti-intrusion right off the bat. That'll make it easier for one person to kind of mess with fitting it up in there, not having to hold that junction together. I hope that doesn't come back to bite me in the ass later. I don't think it will, but only one way to find out. So this is still pretty hot, but so yeah, we went ahead, welded these together, welded that one together, and I tacked them also. You'll probably notice in the time lapse. I tacked them together, and I then got another piece of 1.5-inch tubing and lay it in there just to make sure the clocking of the notches was right, because it would suck to somehow screw that up, and then when you go to put them on the A-pillar, one of the notches has a hole you can put your finger in because you clocked it wrong. So I think we're good there. And then Bob went ahead and made just some super generic 3x3 base plates. The rule is 2x2 according to FD. We went 3x3 just to be safe. They might need some final fitting, maybe cut around an edge or something, to fit in there right. The S14 floor is extremely inconvenient to add these anti-intrusions to compared to the BMWs we normally do. So it'll be a bit of a challenge. I don't think it'll be too bad, but we'll be in here tomorrow getting those in and the door bars in, and then we're done. So I will follow up with you guys tomorrow. Thanks for checking by. All right, it is a new day. We are going to get started on these anti-intrusions. Like you already saw, I welded them to each other last night, let them cool down for a while. So today we're going to work on getting those fit. Hopefully it doesn't take too long, and then we can get started on the door bars. So I'll show you kind of what the deal is with these and why they're kind of interesting. Is that let me get in here. So over here we've got our little anti-intrusion. Let me pin this down. There we go. Welded together. Now, so I'm trying to look at this and this. Our etches are about right there in this cage where that's supposed to sit. Now, if you can see, that's quite a bit too long angled in. We want these to be straight to about right here. Is where we're aiming for there. So we're gonna have to just kind of, cut some off this, try to fit it, cut a little off, try to fit it, cut a little off, try to fit it. That way we're sure we don't overcut it and end up with a gap. So I'm gonna start cutting this now, and we'll go from there. So here's where we're at. I've cut 3/4 of an inch off the end of this in 2 different cuts, and we're getting close. Like I said, we're kind of shooting to be there. So this is still hitting here, but it's getting close. There's also another way to kind of drop this down here. So looking here, our bottom is probably right. And remember, the base plate still has to go in here, so it's going to take up a little bit of space also. So what I'm going to start doing now is only removing material from the top edge of this to try to get this angle to match of the firewall. So I'm going to start taking a little off there, and we'll probably end up fine-tuning it with a flap disc to get it 100%. All right, so we're getting pretty close here. Angled that top off. You can see there. Basically at the point of having to freehand it now. I went ahead and I marked these in Sharpie. Hopefully you can see that. Just to make it a little bit easier for you guys and myself to see this while I'm fitting it. So, we bring this up here, slide it kind of outside that, bring it back in. So you can see our angle is just about right there. It just needs to go down a couple inches, as you can see there. And there, we're pretty much 1.5 inches above where we need to be. So this is just going to become a matter of touching this with a flap disc, trying it, touching it, trying it. Repeat until it fits. So we'll get that done, and then we'll see what it looks like fitted up. All right, so we got it real close now. I decided to go ahead and tack the lower door bar in, because that's really what's setting the distance between the main hoop and the A-pillar bar, which is then setting the distance between the main hoop and the firewall, or the A-pillar and the firewall. So I got that lined up, tacked it in where I'm pretty sure it's designed to go, and got the A-pillar, or the anti-intrusion, mostly fit. So I'll show you that. See, the door bar is tacked, and now that's fit on the base plate there. So what I think I'm gonna do is tack it to the base plate, get everything where I think it needs to be. You can see those are lined up. Tack it to the base plate, take the base plate out of the car, fully weld that, and then hammer this whole thing back down in, and then weld up the base plate is my plan. So just in case you're curious, this angle ended up being, and I'm not saying use it, I'm saying measure it, but in this car it ended up being a 35-degree cut that needed to be put on the end of this to line up with this firewall here. I unfortunately couldn't do it in the chop saw because of this other bar being welded to it, so I just kind of freehanded it with a Sawzall and a flap disc, but it did end up on my belt sander being 35 degrees. So yeah, we will get this tacked up and see what happens. All right, so we got that welded up outside of the car, and got it back in here now. It tapped right down pretty much straight into its home. You can see there is some gap like there. This edge is good, the bottom edge is good, that side is good, so pretty much just this corner on the top edge. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to weld the places that are good and get a lot of heat into that base plate, and then I'm going to try to hammer that corner down to get a flush fit. I could weld down in that seam and that'd be fine, but I would rather get that corner rolled and get a better weld on the edge. So we will get this welded up, and then we will move on from there. All right, so we got the passenger side in, the base plate welded in, like 75% welded up. It is going to take a little bit of creativity to get the outside of those welded up. Where the A-pillar lands kind of makes it real tight. So we'll see what we can do there. And then we are working on the driver's side now. I got it chopped. The length is different between the two, just a little bit. So don't just copy whatever you did on one side to the other side. It will be wrong. So that is good to go. Got it fit. So what I'm going to do now is go ahead and tack in the lower door bar like I did on the other side, and then get it fit with the base plate. Again, tack to the base plate, take it out, weld it up, go from there. So I'm going to try to get a time lapse of this one this time, so you can kind of see the process, hopefully, and then we're on to the door bars. Alright, so I got the other side fitted, got it welded to the base plate, and the base plate welded in, as well as the roughly 75% of the weld to the A-pillar bar that is doable in its current state. So I've got some ideas for what we're going to try here to get the rest of the way welded. It's 360-degree weld. Everything, always. Can't stress that enough. There's always a way. You sometimes just got to get creative in figuring it out. So I'm going to show you how these look, and then we're going to start experimenting with some ideas to get the outer sides of them welded. So, ooh, it's hot over here. Passenger side, boom. Driver side, boom. So yeah, we're just gonna get a little bit creative. I'll show you what I come up with, and then we will keep moving forward. All right, so I was able to get those fully welded up. That was by far the most labor-intensive part of installing this kit so far, just the anti-intrusions as a whole. I ended up doing what I've seen some other people do, which is fit a car tie-down strap basically from the bottom of each A-pillar bar and squeeze them in as hard as you possibly can. And it was able to give me just enough room to barely get the tip of my welder in there and get them welded up. So let me flip this around. You can kind of see that one over there, done. This one over here, done. And the strap is still in here that I laid across, and basically just squeeze those together as hard as I possibly could. I even used a big pry bar between the car and the bar to get another click out of the ratchet strap, and it gave me just enough to get up in here and get those taken care of. So since I was there, I got these bottom door bars all welded in on both sides, since I needed those pulled out to do those also. So these are all good to go now. So pretty much tomorrow should just be the upper door bars, the 6 door supports, and then we are done. So there is a couple more bars that form a X across the rear supports to the strut towers. They're laying behind me here. They do fit. I had them mocked up, but we're not sure if we're going to use those. They're not required by any sanctioning body that I'm aware of. They're definitely not required by FD. And they do kind of interfere with where we are planning on possibly putting a fuel cell and cool shirt tank and the rear mount stuff. Basically none of the stuff in the back is planned out yet, and I would hate to weld those in and then have to cut them back out later to fit a fuel cell or fit a radiator or anything like that. So we're going to hold on to them and keep them here because it's better to have them than not have them, but they're not, like I said, they're optional. So we're just going to hold on to them, put them to the side, get a little bit further along in the build process, and then see if they fit later on once the rest of the rear stuff is fitted, and go from there. So yeah, I'm headed home, come back tomorrow, knock out these door bars, and we should be just about finished up with this Cagekits install. Alright, so it is a new day here down at the shop. If it looks a little empty in the background, it's because we're also loading up right now to head to round 3 of the Full Lock Pro-Am with my E46. Headed out Friday to hopefully go out there and secure a top 3 spot on get a pro spec license. So we'll see. As far as this cage is coming along, I think I decided the next thing that we want to do is actually weld the cage into the car finally. Those anti-intrusions locked it down pretty hard, so there's not much pushing, pulling, moving left to do. And doing the upper door bars, I mean, I'm trying to do those last because they really make crawling in and out much more of a pain for the other stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and weld in these 6, the main hoop, the rear supports, and the A-pillars down to the car. And then we will need to clean up the door bar supports. I haven't cleaned those yet. I only cleaned the upper ones. Get those all fitted in and tacked up, and then we will weld those, and then shit, the cage is done. So follow along. Alright, so got the cage all welded in, all 6 of those tubes to their base plates, easy enough. So what we're going to do from here is start getting the door bars fit. I got the supports all cleaned up. The door bars were already cleaned up. The lower bars are already welded in. And this is where it might be a little different for this particular install than your kit, whatever you're doing, because we originally ordered an S14 kit with a different style door bar, and then at the last minute, Rob was able to swap out those door bars with some S15 door bars from a different kit that were the style that we wanted for this car. So he warned me beforehand. We went through everything that the reference marks on the cage might not be in exactly the right spot. So these are going to take a little bit of actual fitment. They seem to fit real good. I mean, the lower one did line up with its etch marks, and that's where I have them. The upper is a little bit off, and the supports are a little bit off, so no big deal. Everything fits up. So let me show you. I've got this just kind of stuck in here right now. So, whoa. There we go. So I'm still trying to learn this camera. So that's just mocked up in there. Just with hopes and dreams right now. It seems to fit really well. So, go from the other side. The support bars, they look a little tilted right now. They're still a little loose. I think the whole door bar needs to move down a couple millimeters. But all the notches are fitting good. They do all match once you get it down and tight. So, gonna get that fitted just a hair better, get it tacked in place, and then move on to the other side. Alright, so the door bars are fitted in. I haven't fully welded them yet. They're just tacked right now. That did take a little bit of time and a little bit of creativity. They're kind of a lot for one person to do, so you gotta basically balance 4 or 5 things all at the same time, and then get them all lined up and then start tacking them. So I got them tacked now, and they match up just about perfect. So I'll show you those, and then I'm gonna go ahead and fully weld all those in. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 welds per side. And then, we're done. So I'll show you how these fit in with them tacked. Then I'll give you kind of an up-close walkthrough of the complete cage completed. And then I'll kind of go through some post-install thoughts and ideas, kind of a review. So yeah. Alright, so we just finished welding up the door bars, and with that, the cage is done. There are a couple bars left that we are opting not to install right now, as this car will be getting a fuel cell and a rear mount and a cool shirt, potentially some stuff like that, and we just don't want to cause issues for ourselves later down the line. So I'll show you those, and then we'll kind of walk through the cage. So this is these. And this is a rear X. I'll try to zoom in a little bit here on. So these are the laser notches. And these will install pretty much just like, you know, the whole rest of the cage has, if you've made it this far. Line up the etches, and I have test fitted, everything fits. Line up the notch, the etch, fit them together, weld them in. Not much needs covered there. So you can see we've got our rear bars in, welded up. Our whole sort of main hoop setup there. Other rear bar. We'll come around. These are the FD style door bars from the S15 kit. Dash bars all in. Really fits well. I might even try to go ahead and weld up these A-pillars. Or make some gusset plates, but they're tight. I mean, I don't want to gusset them. They're so tight. I'd rather just weld them to the pillars. But yeah, it came out really well. I hope Angelo is as happy with it as I am. So yeah, that should cover it. I'm going to cool off a bit, grab a drink, and then kind of walk through a process, go over somewhat of a review type thing, some ideas, and yeah, hopefully this answers any questions you had and helps you out in your process. Alright, so now that the cage is buttoned up, I wanted to go ahead and just put a little kind of recap interview thing together with some thoughts and things like that. So, first thing on the agenda, I am not affiliated with Cagekits in any way. I'm not affiliated with Rob in any way. I am an independent shop in Golden, Colorado, doing drift car builds and fab work. So, moving on from there, the biggest thing I can see hanging up first timers doing this kit, the DIY people, is going to be figuring out the order of things. I hope this video covered that well for you. If you have any other suggestions, feel free to leave them in the comments. The one thing in the video, and this is why you got to watch stuff to the end, that I wish I had done different was the anti-intrusions were a bit of a pain because of the order I did things in. So what I would do from now on when I do my next one is I'm not going to weld the dash bar in. I'm just going to fit it and let it wedge itself in there. And I'm not going to weld the base plate for the anti-intrusions to the floor until after the anti-intrusions are welded to the A-pillar bars. So basically, get your dash bar in, get your A-pillars down, make your whole anti-intrusion. Like I welded them together, that was fine. Welded them to the base plate, that was fine. From there, I'm going to knock them into place, and I'm going to weld as much as I can to the A-pillars. Then I'm going to knock the dash bar back out, and then use the ratchet strap method, which I did, but you'll be able to get a lot more movement out of that if the fronts aren't welded to the floor and the dash bar is not in. I was only able to get maybe an inch total out of that, split between the two sides, just enough to fit my MIG gun in there. But if had that dash bar been out and those base plates not been welded in, I could have got easily an inch per side, if not more. So that would have made life a lot easier there, and potentially welding in the door bars. I think the dash bar will probably be the last thing I put in. And the anti-intrusion base plates to the floor are going to be the last two things that go in and the ones I do from now on. From there, I want to touch on the quality of the notches and the etches and markings on the kit. They're phenomenal. So everything lined up exactly where I should. I mean, it's almost too easy. You literally take the bar, find the number, figure out where it fits, fit your notch, and then line up your etch, and then everything's good to go. I did just want to mention there were 2 or 3 bars total that I did have to manipulate the notch just a couple millimeters with a flap disc. And the reason for that, I think, and I could be wrong on this, but I think is because when the cage is designed in CAD, it can't account for the thickness of weld in the multiple bar nodes. So particularly where the main hoop is, you got the 2 diagonals that go up into those corners. In those corners is also the rear downward supports and the rear X brace. All land in that one node. So those notches all fit together 100% perfect if you snap it together without welding anything. But in my case, I welded the rear supports, then I welded the diagonals. So the notch in the diagonal didn't have enough relief for the pre-existing weld that I had just laid in there. So I just had to, the slightest, less than 10 seconds with a flap disc, and it fit perfect. So if you run into that, I guess my point is don't be afraid to touch things with a flap disc. Where things ended up, like one of the door bars, the upper door bar on the driver's side, it would have fit if I beat it in with a hammer, but I opted to just open the notch a hair, again, 10 seconds with a flap disc, and then it sat right down into place. So don't think you're necessarily wrong if you need to do that, but double, triple check before you do, because it's very rare that you're going to have to do that. On that note, with the fitment to the car, it's phenomenal. I mean, it's as good as I would do with a custom kit. The A-pillars are perfectly in line with the factory A-pillars. The cage is tight. The halo's tight. Everything's good. If you wanted to go through and spread things a hair and start welding things to the chassis, you easily could. Or if you wanted to make gusset plates, you could also do that. So I'm very impressed. I've been part of some other roll cage pre-made kit. I don't want to say cage kits. Some other, let's call them competitors, cage installs, and it is a night and day difference between some of the other cages on the market and this one. A lot of them don't come notched, which is, honestly, bending them is the easy part. It's notching them that I think is a pain. So they really don't save you a whole lot if you're someone like me who has a bender and stuff like that. But I definitely think this is worth the extra money over those, because the time and headache and material, and not materials, but consumables cost is going to come out in your favor in the end. So all in all, this took me, I'm going to say roughly 20 to 22 hours to install. It was in the shop for a week. I mean, it's here for other stuff, so we're not in a rush anyway. But if you're having a shop install this, I would guess that it's going to be about a week that they're going to need the car. It was 20 hours actually working on it. That wasn't counting figuring stuff out, researching, stuff like that. I own and operate the shop, so I get pulled off to answer the phone or to answer a Facebook message or to help someone with this project here pretty consistently. So it's hard to just grind on one thing for an 8-hour workday. That's not going to happen in my life. So I got about 6 hours a day on it for 4 days. So that would be 24 hours. So I guess if you're looking to quote someone to install it, that's what I would say is fair. Once I do more, I'm sure they'll start coming quicker, and then maybe we can adjust from there. But yeah, all in all, I mean, our turnaround time on a custom cage is 3 to 4 weeks. So, I mean, 24 hours versus, I'm so bad at math, 120 roughly, 120 plus, let's say. So it's definitely a huge time saver and a huge cost saver for the customer. When I write estimates, it comes out about $750 cheaper to order a cage kits and have me install it than it is to have me do a custom cage. And that's what I'm moving people to, just because it frees up more time in the shop, doesn't take up as much space for a month, and it's just way less headache all around. For the quality, it's worth it. And then, so my final thoughts, I kind of delved into that already. Like I said, I'm steering a lot of my customers to it in cars that they offer them for. There's a few I've had requests for that they don't quite make them yet. So I'm sure as things goes on and they keep getting sales and making these kits, that they'll start adding more and more chassis. So I have potentially another one coming in and 2 more coming in before winter. So I'm excited. Like I said, if you're a DIY person, this is definitely the way to go. You're going to thank yourself in the end versus any other option. And that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, comments, want clarification on anything, go ahead and leave a comment and I will get back to those. If not, thanks for stopping by, checking out the videos, and I hope you enjoy your new cage kits.